Glaives got an update this season, so they work with some exotic armour, and today I'm going to run through a Warlock Arc 3.0 build with one of those exotic armour pieces, and that is Karnstein Armlets. Well, Glaives are very strong this season, both in PvP and PvE, and now you can get on-demand health regeneration, and this build is great for going into endgame content. Well, today I'm going to run through that Arc 3.0 setup, plus the weapons, the mods and the armour, so you can stab your way through endgame content in Destiny 2. Well, if you're new around here or find this useful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for all the latest Destiny 2 content, and turn on notifications by hitting that bell. Roughly 98% of viewers who watch This Week in Video Games aren't subscribed, so subscribe today and never miss an update. Without further delay, let's dive into this Warlock Arc 3.0 build. And first of all, let's have a look at the Arc setup. So for my super, I'm using Chaos Reach. For my grenade, I'm using a Skip Grenade. And for my melee, I'm using Chain Lightning. Then my class ability, I'm using a Healing Rift. For my aspects, I'm using Arc Soul. So you cast your Rift to create an Arc Soul that fires at targets in front of you. Allies can pass through your Rift to get an Arc Soul as well. Your Rift charges fast when allies are near. And while amplified, your Arc Souls are supercharged and gain an increased rate of fire. I'm also using Electrostatic Mind, so defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets creates an ionic trace, and collecting an ionic trace makes you amplified. Then for the fragments, I'm using Spark of Amplitude, so rapidly defeating targets when you're amplified creates an orb of power. Using Spark of Shock, so your arc grenade jolts targets. Spark of Recharge, while critically wounded, your melee and grenade energy regenerate more quickly. And then Spark of Resistance, so while surrounded by enemies, the player has increased damage resistance. Well then for my exotic armour, I'm using Karnstein Armlets. So these are exotic Warlock gauntlets with the perk Vampire's Caress. So with Vampire's Caress, melee kills instantly restore a large amount of health and continue to restore health afterwards for a short duration, and you also get increased mobility. Well, I'm pairing these exotic gloves with a Glaive, given the sandbox update from Bungie at the beginning of the season, and Bungie said about this update, Glaive's interaction with some exotic armor pieces can be confusing, so we have explicitly made some changes to align better with our stated goals. So Glaive melee attacks can now activate the exotic armor perks on ACD Zero Feedback Fence, Karnstein Armlets, and also Necrotic Grip. Well, now Glaive kills are going to proc the perk Vampire's Caress. That's going to give you health back whenever you get a Glaive kill. That's going to be really useful in all kinds of content in Destiny 2. And we don't have Glaive champion mods this season, but we can work around that with our kinetic and power weapons. And let's go through those weapons now. First of all, in the kinetic slot, I'm using Hung Jury SR4. That one is a legendary kinetic scout rifle. This one is a precision frame, meaning the weapon's recoil pattern is much more predictably vertical, and rapid hit and fire flies a really good role in PvE to look out for, plus you've also got surplus and explosive payload. Hung Jury isn't available in the game at the moment, but it can be swapped out for any kinetic scout rifle. In the energy slot, this is where the Glaives come in. I'm using Nezarec's Whisper. This one is a legendary energy adaptive Glaive, which is a hybrid melee ranged polearm with a frontal shield. It generates energy on dealing ranged damage, you can aim down sights to raise a shield, and it depletes energy over time, plus you've got that melee and kinetic melee combo. Nezarec's Whisper is an absolute beast in PvE content this season. It's got some great perks, they're going to really help you tear through enemies in seconds. I'd say for PvE, Impulse Amplifier and Frenzy would be a decent role. So with Impulse Amplifier, massively increases the projectile velocity and increases the reload speed. Then with Frenzy, so being in combat for an extended period of time, increases damage handling a reload for the weapon until you are out of combat. So if you want to get this one, you can go to the Derelict Leviathan near the moon and get Nezarec's Whisper. In the power slot, I'm using Thunderlord. This one is an exotic heavy machine gun which delivers arc damage, and it's got the perks Rain Havoc. So kills with the weapon generate lightning strikes from above, and Feeding Frenzy, so each rapid kill with the weapon progressively increases reload speed for a short time. Thunderlord is absolutely amazing for arc builds this season, given you've got intrinsic overload, so that's really good against overload champions. Well, next up then, let's have a look at the mods. So I'm using Elemental Ordnance, so defeating combatant with a grenade spawns an elemental well that matches your subclass energy type. I'm using Bountiful Well, so elemental well mods that cause you to spawn elemental wells can now stack, spawning additional wells for each additional copy of the mod you have equipped. Basically, for every copy of Elemental Ordnance you have equipped, you're going to get an Elemental Well. So I'm going to have multiple copies of Elemental Ordnance equipped, and using Bountiful Wells, that means I'm going to get loads of Elemental Wells every time I get a grenade kill. Then I'm using Font of Might, so picking up an Elemental Well that matches your subclass energy type grants a temporary bonus to weapon damage, and that is about 20%. I'm also using an anti-barrier scout rifle mod, that is for endgame content, and I'm going for 100 resilience, and that will give me a 40% damage reduction. So for additional health benefits, you can throw in Elemental Charge and Protective Light. I'm going with Bountiful Wells and Elemental Ordnance mods, because I want more Elemental Wells. However, Elemental Charge and Protective Light is really useful if you want more damage resistance. Well, the kinetic and power weapons can also be swapped out depending on which champions are present in the endgame activity you're playing. At the time of creating this guide, I was facing barrier and overload champions in the Nightfall, so I used an anti-barrier scout rifle mod, and also the intrinsic overload on Thunderlord. Okay, so next up, let's have a look at the gameplay loop. So you want to kill enemies with glaives, pick off enemies at distance with your kinetic scout rifle, kill champions as required with either your kinetic weapon or your power weapon. You want to throw grenades and generate elemental wells to power out that damage output with Font of Might, throw more grenades to jolt targets and chain lightning attacks through Electrostatic Mind, then get health if you need it through your glaive kills. This build is all about Glaives and Karnstein Armlets, given the update to Glaives being able to proc the Vampire's Caress perk. Health regen isn't an easy thing to come by in Destiny 2. You know, we had Class E Restoration last season, which was a very useful tool for any player, so this is similar to that. It's not exactly the same, but getting health back very quickly and easily and on demand, and pretty much on demand, is a useful tool for Warlocks this season and the seasons ahead. Now regarding Arc 3.0, here I'm using Spark of Shock for arc grenades that jolt targets. So for this build, I'm using a Glaive as my main attack method, but that is being backed up with grenades to help generate elemental wells for that additional damage through Font of Might, and that is about 20% damage increase. Well, Spark of Shock also jolts targets, and then with Electrostatic Mind defeating targets with arc abilities, or defeating jolted targets or blinded targets, well, that creates an Ionic Trace, and collecting the Ionic Trace makes you amplified. And while the Glaive and the health regeneration is the focus of the build, defeating jolted targets and getting amplified is always good. A quick reminder about Amplified Guardians. While an Amplified Guardian is faster, both in terms of movement speed and in terms of their weapon handling, also they are more agile, able to perform long slides that can function as a devastating setup for some of the attacks that follow. Also, Guardians gain a sizable PVE damage resistance buff, so there's plenty of benefits of becoming amplified. Well, let me know in the comments what you think of the build, and let me know if you've got any improvements. Well, that is it for this guide for this Warlock Arc 3.0 and Glaive build with Karnstein Armlets in Destiny 2. And as always, thank you so much for watching or listening. For more Destiny 2 content like this, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to This Week in Video Games. Or you can check me out on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. Well, if you enjoyed this video, found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the other videos on their channel. Well, thanks again. I'll see you soon.